What's up, people on the interwebs? Hope you have an amazing day. Now, welcome back to my video. Now, today I'm going to talk about 10 small culture differences that you don't really notice in Japan until you live here. And it's just small things you don't really think on a daily basis. And you're like, oh, hey, that's a little bit different compared to England. So I'm going to talk about 10 small things that are different in Japan than the UK. So let's jump right into it. So the first one is milk. And when I mean milk, I mean in Japan, when you buy milk, milk comes in a cardboard paper carton, where in the UK, we get our milk, it's normally in a big plastic bottle. So for me, that's a small difference. Same thing, I like, for me, I think I prefer the milk system in the UK because it's very clear on what type of milk each one is, because we have blue milk, red milk, green milk, where red milk is like the watered down milk, and then green is semi skim, and then blue is full fat milk. So that one's nice and easy. But the milk here, they do have like regular milk. They also do have like the watered down milk, and then they have like a yogurt milk. I tend to just go for the regular milk, but the cartons are pretty easy to tell the difference. But it's every shop in town you go to, the carton design is always different. So you have to look for the kanji rather than color. So I really like in the UK we break it down by color, so it's very quick and easy. Regardless of whatever shop you go to, all the milk is just based on a free color system. So I think that's really good. Where here, any shop you can go to, the milk package is always different for which type of milk you're looking for, which can be a little bit frustrating, especially when I'm like, I'm tired, I just want to grab some milk, so please give me milk. Because a couple of times I've thought I've grabbed milk, and then I've grabbed like the yogurt one, and I'm just like, I just wanted milk for my tea. So that's one thing I've noticed here. Another one was very interesting is the gyms here, they don't really have rowing machines. And I just thought, at first, I was like, oh, maybe it's the gym I've picked, because it's something, not every gym will have every equipment you want. But when I started to look around for gyms, especially in Yokohama, I could not find one that had a rowing machine. And I was like, why does Japan hate rowing machines? Because I thought for the type of cardio they're into, I thought it'd be great because it can work on the arms, it's like full body. And apparently, the reason they don't have the rowing machines here is one, it takes up a lot of space. So the gyms here can be a little bit on the smaller side, so they don't want to use too much space for a rowing machine. Apparently, they break a lot. And apparently, I was wrong on the cardio thing. For the cardio that a rowing machine does, it's not the cardio Japan is interested in. They're more interested for like a very slender, lean body. Where cardio for a rowing machine is too bulky. It works too much on the arms, and they don't want to have like bulky arms from what I was reading. So it's very interesting. On the biggest thing was the rowing machines is the wrong type of cardio. It's not the muscle groups they actually want to focus on, which is a shame because I love a good rowing machine. I think they are great. So I do really miss a rowing machine in the gym, because at the moment I have to do just normal cardio or the bikes, and I don't mind the bikes, but I think I always try and limit the bikes. I think sometimes the bikes are more, they're not as good as they should be, in my opinion. But yeah, that's a shame that they do not have a rowing machine. I do like a good one. Another one I have mentioned before, but is the locks on the doors. Compared to the UK, when we lock a door, we go this way, but in Japan, to lock a door, it goes this way. So it's the opposite side, which when I first came here, and I still do it every now and then, it's very frustrating because I'm like, which way is this door going to lock? It's the same with the windscreen wipers and the indicators in a Japanese car, because in the UK, after thinking about this now, the UK for the windscreen wipers, it's on this side, but in Japan, it's on this side. And every time I go from UK or Japan, I'm always pressing the wrong one. When I want to put the windscreen wipers on, I put the indicator on, and then it becomes a kind of very crazy mess for like 2 minutes. So it's very frustrating that those are on the wrong side. So number four is a very common one, which is shoes. So when you go into someone's house, you may have to take off your shoes. Same thing in schools as well. You do have to take off your shoes and then change to indoor shoes. And what I always find really interesting, and it's absolutely wild, especially for the schools on photo day. So you take a photo and everyone's all in these nice suits, but because everyone goes outside, they have to change their shoes. So everyone's got all these nice suits on, and then they're either wearing like slippers or trainers. And then when you see the actual school photo, everyone's in these great suits, but then the footwear is all wrong and it's like inappropriate, especially coming from like the English and British standard for when we had school day. Everything had to be a matching for the outfit. You had your nice black shoes, you had your school uniform on. It was all very smart. So in Japan, to see the smart at the top and then all the shoes are all chaos, it's very funny to me. So number 5 would be also, compared to the UK, the trains and the buses are very quiet. There is more of a cultural norm here where you do not speak on public transport and you don't take phone calls as well. Where that's very interesting because in the UK, you can have a phone call on the bus, you can have a phone call on the train. What we normally do is, if you do want to be in a quieter section, especially on trains, we'll have one carriage where that's like the quiet, no phone place to sit. So it's interesting that they value more silence on all the forms of public transport here in Japan, where in England we don't really care that much. Number 6, this one's more for the Americans, but there's no tipping culture in Japan. You just pay what the bill is. And personally, for me, I think that is great. I am not a huge fan of tipping culture. I personally think places should actually be paying their staff a proper wage rather than having to rely on tips. So I much prefer that kind of system. I think only tipping should be done when the service has been amazing. I hate tipping culture when it's like, you haven't done anything, why should I be giving you money? Because even in the UK, we don't have tipping culture, but there's a new sneaky thing coming, which is service charge, and that is a bit like the tip. My problem with the service charge is they've done nothing sometimes, and it's like, why do I have to pay an extra like £25 when you have done nothing? So it's quite nice. I do like that when I go to places here that there isn't those extra fees. But I will say, for some restaurants in Japan, you do have to be careful because some places do have a table charge, because I've been to some more nicer restaurants, and then at the end of the bill, a table charge does come. But that is more depending on the restaurant. I think if you go to more of a higher, fancier restaurant, there is a chance you could get a table charge in Japan. But if you go to most local places, there's whatever you've bought, you are just paying for that. So yeah, I do like very much that you just pay what you get. I hate the whole, when the service has been regular and they sort of expect more money, and it's like, but you haven't done anything. Um, you haven't done anything special. So that's one thing I do like with Japan. I do like the no service charge, because especially in the UK, that service charge was getting out of hand. And the thing that also pissed me off with the service charge in the UK, you would actually speak to the staff members going, oh, is this service charge going to you? Are you actually getting it? And then they said no. And I'm like, what? So there was many times we actually took the service charge off, and then we actually gave what the money for the service charge was to the waiters instead. So that's like something, especially in the UK, that something you might not be aware of, but you can actually take off the service charge. And if you want to use that money, just give it to the waiters instead. Because that's what I tend to do in some places in the UK, if the staff have been great and that service charge is actually going to the companies instead and not the waiters of the day. So yeah, very interesting difference between the UK and Japan, and also America, I would say. Another one that is also common in Japan is having a hanko, which is like a personal Japanese seal. So instead of using a pen for a signature, you have a little stamp with your name engraved on it. And then for signatures and documents, you normally just stamp with your hanko. But I also want to say the hanko is slowly, I think it's slowly becoming less popular now. There's many places now that will take signatures. Because one thing that surprised me with Yokohama, I bought my hanko. I was expecting to do some hanko documents here, but everything here I've been able to sign with a pen. So I want to say the hanko, if you move to more bigger cities, it is less common. I think if you go into the more countryside, the hanko is more expected, because in Ahime, I had to hanko a lot of stuff, but here in Yokohama, I've actually not used my hanko once. So if you ever do come to Japan, recommend to get a Hanko just to be safe. But I think if you move to a city, I think you will actually not use it as much. I actually have not used it at all since moving to Yokohama. But always get one, because you never know in the world of Japan. The one day you don't bring it, they are going to be like, "Where's your Hanko? We need you to stamp." So it's definitely interesting. I do think the Hanko is very cool. I do like my Hanko. It's cool, and it's very Japanese element of Japan. But I do also think it is slowly fading out. It's I have not used it in this big city as of yet. Maybe if I do some more important business documents, maybe it'll reappear. But currently, no Hanko has been needed in the bigger city. So I do wonder if it's fading out, or are they taking a bit more of exception with being a foreigner and you can just sign your name instead. So yeah, super interesting to see that kind of change. Same thing with cash as well. I do think I've seen some posts where they're like, cash is kind of dying in Japan. You don't need to bring cash as much. Everywhere does take card. I still think that's a big fat lie. Every time I see someone on social media post, you don't need to bring cash. Biggest lie of them all. I always think carry cash with you in Japan. I think just to be safe, always keep like an Ichimon somewhere on you just to be safe, because especially in the bigger cities, don't get me wrong, you will probably be fine on a day-to-day basis. You can probably get away with not using cash. But I still walk around in this big city and I still see a shop. I still see a shop here and there that will say, sorry, cash only, cash only, cash only. I think you'd be a fool not to come to Japan and bring some cash. Definitely make sure you have it. Don't rely on cards alone, because Japan is still a little bit of a cash central society, especially if you go to the countryside. The more you go into the countryside, the more cash it's going to be. Bigger cities, you will probably be all right, but I do think you should still have cash in the big city, because I still do see the odd shop, especially if you're going to the tourist places. Like I've seen in Chinatown, some tourist shops are all cash only. So make sure you do bring it. And especially if you're going to the countryside, make sure to bring some cash. Don't listen to people on social media. I think you still need cash in Japan. It is not fully card just yet. In the bigger cities, you are a bit more safer, but still have some on you, because you never know when it will be handy. And then moving on to number 7. Something. It's the I've seen this one before, and I'm always a little bit conscious when I do it. Is the eating and no walking at the same time. So if you're in Japan, if you've got a snack, you should go to the side somewhere or sit down on a bench and eat the snack, and don't walk. But I want to say this one's a bit hit and miss, because there's places I've been to. If it's really crowded, I will definitely sit down and eat my snack, because it's not worth trying to fight through the crowd. Sometimes if I'm running late for something, I will have to I do eat my sandwich on the run and go. But I do think it's a bit hit and miss where you are, because I've seen some Japanese people also eat and walk at the same time. So I definitely think that one's a little bit more of a situation dependent base. Obviously, most times I do try and go to a corner and not eat it. Most of the time, if I'm eating on the go, it's like I'm in a rush. I do not have time to find a place to stop. I have to like catch a train or do something like that. But I definitely think that one's a bit, compared to when I see people on social media like, you can't do this. I'm like, I've seen Japanese people also eat food on the go and run. So yeah, that one, I think that one's very much situation dependent for what's going on in people's lives. But it's my thing. I just don't think trust social media half the time, because I've seen people who also live in Japan make some posts about Japan. And I just kind of roll my eyes sometimes. I'm like, you're kind of lying here. This is not the full truth. You are bending the rules a little bit. And one thing for my channel is I always want to try and give the honest opinion of Japan. I don't want to give a rose tinted version of it. I want to show the best and the worst. I just hate seeing social media people who glamorize it all, because I'm just like, you're what you could be sharing. It might spark someone to come to Japan, but then when they get to Japan, the culture shock hits them, and then they're like, oh, it's not what I expected. And it's like, well, yeah, it's not what you expected, because all the stuff you watched about Japan was like the over highlighted rose tinted glass of view. No one showed you like the darker side of the country. And I think it's important to show both, because don't get me wrong, I think this is a great country, but every country has their small problems, and it's important to highlight both elements. My next one is omiyage. If you go somewhere in Japan or just on holiday, you will be semi expected to bring back omiyage. And they just tend to be these like little biscuits here with something from the area. So this is some omiyage I bought when I left Ehime. So this is just some Ehime omiyage. It's got the Ehime mascot of Mikan on here. But you will be expected for your job to bring something back to them to go, I fought a few while I was away. Here you are, have a little snack. For you, this just be careful if you're happy to tell people where you're going, because if you tell someone you're going somewhere, they might expect it. Where if you don't want to give this kind of stuff, just keep it quiet where you are going, because you might have a little bit of an unofficial drama of like, oh, they went somewhere, they didn't get us a snack. So just be careful. But if you like doing it, just tell them, yeah, I'm going here, because I always like doing the omiyage. It's for me, especially if you're in a new job, it's a great conversation starter. And if you're not in a company where there's not that many people, it's not that expensive. Where I can get it, if you work loads of schools, it can get very pricey. So just be very mindful of what you say and do. But yeah, I like this. I think this is nice. We don't have as much in the UK. Sometimes people do bring back gifts if they've gone somewhere, but here it's definitely more expected. My last one is the bowing culture here. So instead of having like a business shake, like we do in the West for like a business meeting or anything, or going like, hello, nice to meet you, I'm blah, 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 and you have a handshake, everything here is all bowing. And what's really interesting with the bowing culture here, depending on the degree of the bow, it all means something different. And from what I've gathered, the lower the degree, the more like sincere they are being, especially if they have to do like that full 90-degree bow here. It tends to mean someone's messed up somewhere and they have to do like an apology bow. So the lower you go, the more like the apology is. But like when you meet someone, they're kind of like they always tilt and bow to say like, oh, nice to meet you, which is kind of the equivalent of like a handshake. So it is interesting, the bowing culture here, and especially every degree has a different meaning. I remember one of my Japanese friends was telling me for work, for training, they were practicing the degree of the bows for when like staff come in, or like when a customer comes in, and like you have to do the bow at like the right 45 angle. So they're all like practicing to making sure they get the right angle for the bow. And I thought that was really interesting to hear that story on like, oh wow, you have to like practice to make sure the degree of the bow is correct. So super interesting to see that difference. But yeah, those are some of the 10 culture differences I've noticed since being in Japan. Super interesting. I love like these small culture differences, because they're so, it really shows like a difference of how one country is different from another, and what is seen as normal in one country and different in another. So I love when these kind of culture changes happen and you notice it, because I'm like, oh, that's different. And that's really interesting. It's great. I'd love to know in the comments down below if you have been to another country, you notice any culture differences. I'd love to know what you notice different compared to your country and the country you went to visit or even lived in. Also, if you know any other culture differences in Japan as well, put in the comments down below. I'd love to everyone to share their thoughts and opinions of just culture in general. And just remember, guys, keep being awesome, keep being amazing, and I will see you next time. Bye.